guys, I'm here with the Unmuted Pod. My name is Alexej, and I am here with Bemnet.
Hi, I'm a model based in Houston, Texas.
And today I'm going to be interviewing her about some of her experiences in the modeling industry, and we're going to be talking about some different things, some very questionable things that go on with human trafficking and harassment in the modeling industry. So, yeah, thank you for joining us. My first question for you: how long have you been modeling? Like, why did you get into it?
I've been modeling for about 5 years now. I got into it with my best friend in high school, and we just loved putting together different outfits. We loved being in front of a camera and that whole thing. But I mainly started taking it more seriously the past year.
Okay. Do you feel like when you kind of went into modeling, like you knew what you were like going to end up doing, or do you feel like there were things that came out of nowhere that kind of threw you off a little bit?
I had somewhat an idea of what I wanted to do or what I was going to do, but there were a lot of things that I wish I knew beforehand. I started out at this modeling school, which honestly, it was a waste of money.
Yeah,
But
often is.
I did learn a few things here and there. But there were things that I could have just picked up from other people, YouTube, or different videos online. Um, and the industry definitely gave me like a rude awakening
Yeah.
as far as confidence and just all of the different things that being a model, like what comes with being a model.
Do you like I know a lot of people say that modeling like might give you a confidence boost. Is that your experience, or do you think that some experiences you had with certain people kind of like maybe cut down your confidence, or how did that kind of go for you?
Definitely both. Um, I feel like I've become more confident over the years through modeling, getting experience in front of a camera, and going to different shoots, things like that. But there have been certain shoots where I was mainly comparing myself to other people, which is really the downfall of so many, not just models, but anyone in general. Comparison. Yeah. Comparison is the worst. Like, that is your worst enemy. Um, and I would always compare myself to other models, or if I didn't get picked for a certain collaboration or photo shoot or whatever, I would feel so hurt and just so discouraged and wouldn't really want to continue, and or I would take a break and then just not really take things as seriously.
Yeah. Do you feel like some people kind of prey on people's insecurities, like in the industry?
100%. Especially if a photographer knows that you aren't, like, you haven't been modeling for that long, or you're like really desperate to model, they definitely will prey on you. Um, if you're insecure, they will prey on you. They know how to spot like the weakest link, and it's really sad. Honestly, it's very sad, and it's like the bigger man attacking someone who can't really help themselves or speak out about what's going on.
Do you feel like what are some ways that some photographers like prey on models and kind of take that desperation and use it to their own advantage, either to get content or for some like weird sexual motive that they have?
In my personal experience, they'll reach out through social media. Like, they'll DM me on Instagram or find my email through my social media accounts and send me emails about casting calls with big brands, or photo shoots with celebrity photographers and things like that to entice you. And, like, I was new, like when I first started out, I was new to the industry. And obviously, like, if I get an email saying I'm about to work with a huge brand or a celebrity, obviously I'm going to get excited. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And in the beginning, I would literally just be down for whatever. And I would say yes to almost everything. But as time went on and I started hearing these stories and personally experiencing these photographers preying on me, I started really just doing my research before getting into anything and asking around and finding out if this is legit or not. And they usually send these emails or these DMs, and they'll tell you you're doing something, and then once you get there, it's something completely different. Or they try to, I've had photographers try to get me to take off articles of clothing, and it's like, okay, like I took off my jacket, you see my arms, cool. I think it would look better if you just like lifted up the shirt a little bit more, or brought it down a bit, or lifted up your skirt. And it's like, this is not what we arranged. This is not what I was told to do. And majority of the time, like photographers like that have a different agenda, and it's not just, they're not just going with the flow or doing what's best for the shoot.
Right. So like you say that you like now you do your research. Like what does that entail? Like what are some ways that models, like new models, younger models, can kind of scope out whether or not something is like gonna you get there and it's gonna be weird or something like that?
I start doing research on the brand or the photographer or whoever emails me. Google is free. Do your research, search it up. If you know anyone, or if you see that someone you know is following them, you guys have mutuals, reach out to that person. Don't be shy, Us models, we should be working together, or even photographers. It's a community, so everyone's there for each other. Don't be afraid to ask around.
Do you feel like the community in Houston is like good about that, or do you feel like there's some holes places? Because I know that there are specific photographers that I've heard of, and I'll go to their page and they'll have all of these models, even ones I've worked with, following them. And it's kind of like, I know you know, and so why are you still interacting with that person? Like, have you had that experience, or do you feel like it's more of a supportive?
So I started modeling in Dallas. That's where I was born and raised.
Okay.
And that's where I really experienced things like that.
Okay.
There wasn't, like, the community wasn't a community in Dallas. Models just had their own, like, there were different cliques. That was it. Girls were not supporting girls. I think I had, like, 2 friends in Dallas that also modeled, and we were actually there for each other. But in Houston, overall, like, thankfully, I've had great experiences with the community. Everyone is so supportive of each other. They're there for each other, and honestly, like, good vibes with them. So
Okay, that's great.
I haven't experienced that.
So what's like an experience you had with a photographer that like was good or they made you feel safe, and like how can other photographers or creative directors or anything like that kind of emulate that energy?
I have mainly shot with male photographers. I think, I've only worked with one other female photographer besides you. So that already, like, being a female photographer, that makes me feel so safe, because girls support girls, or at least I would hope so. And, when I first shot with you, it was amazing. I was kind of nervous at first because I had just moved to Houston, and I think you were the first photographer I worked with. Yeah, I think you were the first photographer I worked with here in Houston, and you were so welcoming. It was a professional environment, but I felt comfortable to be myself. And you were complimenting me. You were so friendly, and the other, like, the team that was there too, they were amazing as well. Everyone was so kind. I didn't feel uncomfortable whatsoever. It was just such a friendly and welcoming environment.
What are like some ways that you can tell, like even before you go to a shoot, that like it's a bad idea? Like what are specific like red flags in photographers, like when they message you, or things like they say to you that like you've experienced or like that you think people should be aware of?
One main thing is when they're already in my email or in my messages, in like they're like clearly hitting on me.
Yeah.
There's a difference between complimenting and flirting.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, a little bit of flirting is okay, but not like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know
like,
what you
not
mean.
too much.
Okay,
Like
let's
you
calm
can call
down.
me pretty, that's cool, but you're trying to take me out, you're talking
Right.
about specific parts of my body. That's when you're crossing a line.
Yeah.
That's a major red flag, and I just won't even entertain that. It's weird. It's literally weird. This is business. We're trying to create something beautiful, and you're just taking it too far.
Yeah.
Another one is the way whenever they post their models' pictures, their what is it? Their captions. They will say the weirdest things, like this is the sexiest girl that I've ever worked with. Oh my god, da, da, da.
Why
Like
would you
things
say that?
like that.
Like, okay.
It's like I don't even like. I wouldn't want my name or face associated with you. I wouldn't want to be talked about in that way. It's just so, I don't know, disrespectful. At least to me.
Right. It's like,
That's another red
what are
flag.
you doing? Like,
Yeah.
why are you saying that? You know, I mean, again, it like comes back to, I think a lot of photographers get into photography because they think they're gonna meet women, and it's like, like, first of all, like, why are you doing that? Like, it's, you know, you don't like start painting because you want to like meet women. You don't like do other artwork because you like to meet women. Like, what are you? Like,
And if that's your reasoning for getting into it, you shouldn't be doing it at all.
like, you're gonna make people uncomfortable. They're gonna know. Like,
It's so obvious.
You can tell.
It's so. I actually worked with a photographer who he told me that a majority of his girlfriends started out as his models, and I'm like halfway through the shoot, like, oh,
What do you mean by that?
pause.
Yeah. I think, like, if it comes around naturally, like, the model photographer, like, couple is so cute. But, like, when you're, like, when it's always, like, it's like,
Yeah.
why
You
did
see a
that
pattern, and
happen?
it's like, you're a predator.
Yeah, like,
That's
you're
what
being
you
weird.
are. You're a predator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, like, have you ever been at a shoot and, like, you had a specific experience, like, that you didn't see coming, or that, like, really, like, you were like, this is so scary, like, what is happening?
Yeah. So this was in Dallas. This one photographer, we met through like a group chat, and he was so friendly, and I'm also a very friendly person, and I feel like that can be taken the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's that's kind of hard for me too, because like I'm just a friendly person. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to just tone it down sometimes, so people get the wrong idea, and then they start, you give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah.
So this photographer, very kind, very friendly, like we were matching each other's energy, everything was cool. So we meet up, everything was cool, good vibes. Then he starts complimenting me. I'm like, okay, cool, like yes, like boost me, like I'm cool with that. And then he starts talking, like he starts complimenting me in a sexual way. Like he starts talking about, like, okay, so I had, actually I won't go into too much.
You can if you want. Unless you feel like it's gonna make you, like, unsafe or, like, targeted or something.
I was wearing a jacket, and it was like this, like I was wearing it the proper way, and he's like, oh, you should show some shoulder. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it was cute.
Yeah.
He starts talking about how my shoulders are just like so attractive and whatnot, and it's like, shoulders?
That's kind of
shoulders?
It's like when you, like, are in school and they're like, you have to cover your shoulders.
And I'm just like, shoulders? So I didn't say much. I was like, like doing my little awkward laugh. I was clearly uncomfortable. And he just kept going. I'm just like, wow. Like, I have never, like, this was my first experience like that. And he just kept making really sexual jokes. Not about me, but just like in general. And he's like, I hope this isn't making you uncomfortable. And I'm just like,
I feel like if you say that, you already know it's making you
And he's like, some people take it the wrong way. And I'm just like,
maybe no, maybe
oh.
How many people? Is it everybody?
Like, exactly. And so if he knows that some people are taking it the wrong way, why are you
continuing to do that, right?
But I should have spoken up, but I didn't. I was just doing my awkward little laugh, trying to get over with it. And then we finished the shoot. He contacted me again, and I just never really responded. He kept saying the next shoot should be, or no, first he sent me a picture of this girl with a jacket, and like she was naked. She was just wearing the jacket. It's like, oh, this should have been us. Like, this should have been what you did today at the shoot. I was like,
not him getting bold after.
So literally, I was so scared. And
so weird,
he kept sending me boudoir shoots and was like, oh, we should do this next time. Like, he would eat this up. Well, he didn't say eat this up, but he said, yeah. My terminology. But he said I would look so good in that and whatnot. And it's just like, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm not responding to you and you're still texting me. Yeah. It's just really uncomfortable. You're putting me in an awkward situation. Yeah. And the pictures were so beautiful. I didn't post them.
Because you don't want to promote, like, because I feel like when I'm going to work with a photographer or I'm going to work with a model, I always see, like, if they worked with people I know. And if they have, I'm like, okay, well, they're probably not weird. So, you know, you don't want to, like, promote someone that, like, and I think that's, like, a good thing to look for is if the photographer is not tagging the models or the models never ever post their work, then it's kind of like, I feel like that's a red flag.
Exactly.
And some agencies don't let people post specific things, and like that's understandable. But it's like if nobody is posting your work, if you're not tagging your models or they're untagging themselves, or you never like see. Another thing is like if you ever see a photographer hanging out with women, like.
Oh yeah.
Or like just a man in general. Like, why do women not like you?
Like, there's always a reason. There's always a reason.
Yeah. If none of the models they've shot follow them, like that's another red flag. It's like, why does no one follow you?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like, you don't need a photographer with like 1 million followers.
Yeah. But there's so many like photographers that I wasn't comfortable with, and they have pictures up of me, but I'll untag myself, I'll unfollow them, and then they're like, oh, like they have contacted some people, like my mutuals, and be like, oh, I've worked with your friend, and and they'll text me, and I'm just like, don't work with them. Like, there's a reason why I'm not following him. There's a reason why I untagged myself. I've never reposted any of his pictures. There's a reason.
Yeah, that's like so true. And I feel like there's also something called a blacklist, and not every city has one. I'm not sure if Houston has one. I know there are a few in like other cities, but see if like your city has a blacklist of photographers that have been accused of like assault or something like that, because that's like a very quick way. Nope, not working with that photographer. I definitely need to see if there is one so I can like keep it. And also,
let me know.
Yeah, I will like definitely, because I know there are a few. I know when I used to be really active on Twitter, there were like a few blacklists. There was a photographer, his name is Savatic, and he still has millions of followers. I mean, not millions, like hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm being dramatic. And he had several like sexual assault allegations. And
here in Houston?
No, I think he lives in New Jersey.
Oh.
And so many people would still be following him, and so many people would just. And I'm like, I know you.
Oh my gosh! Wait, is it that the black dude?
No, he's like white. Oh. The only reason I know that is because I remember people were also like, why are you saying the N-word? That's a whole other thing. But he's also racist. But he just, the double threat over there.
Ew.
Yeah, his girlfriend was in my DMs one time. And I'm like, babe, you're gonna realize one day, like.
The thing is, like, people will know these things and still continue to work with these kind of people, and it's like, it didn't happen to me, so it doesn't matter. That's so stupid of you, because when it does happen to you, then what? Like,
well, I mean, it's like, and it's kind of like when you have a friend who's friends with someone who, like, did something. Well, like, they're always nice to me. Girl, okay, well, they won't always be, you know?
Exactly.
It's gonna happen.
That I will never understand, because if your friend is not cool with someone because they did something dirty to you, if that's your friend, you do not associate yourself with that person, right? It's common sense.
That. It's also not safe. Like,
so
why are you putting yourself in that situation?
Exactly. It's so weird.
Yeah, do you know of any other models that like have experiences like that and they like tell you about them?
Yeah, several of my friends, they always say, I actually just auditioned for this one upcoming show, and one of my friends was trying to audition as well, and she was like, oh my gosh, the person that's hosting the show actually just texted me trying to get at me. And I was like, oh.
Well, now I don't want to do it.
So, yeah, and I was just like, did this person say anything about the show? And like, no, he was just trying to take me out. And it's like, now she doesn't even want to participate in that. I don't want to participate in it. It's just so weird.
Yeah,
it's
that's not weird. Appropriate.
Yeah.
I bet he was like, and like, I feel like there's a power imbalance, especially with photographers, because although like it is a collaborative thing, like at the end of the day, like the model is benefiting a lot sometimes from like getting photos, especially if it's like free. But sometimes like it's like, well, it's free, so like you should be doing what I want. And it's like, that's not really how it works. Like, you're still, if you don't want to do free shoots, if you don't want to collaborate with people, that's fine. Like, you don't need to.
Yeah.
But if you're like going into something and being like, well, I'm doing you a favor, so you should do this, you should pose like this, you should sexualize yourself like
the
this.
The audacity is so crazy.
And I think there's so many people who want to model and they don't really know how to get into it. And there's just so many agencies and there's so many people that like prey upon that, and it's like it just frustrates me so much. It just makes me so mad.
I've noticed that like I've had several opportunities where men who are in the modeling industry out here in Houston, they'll reach out to me. Same thing that happened to my friend. Like they think that because they have their own clothing brand or they're a photographer, that I'd be enticed to go out with them or just, do whatever for them just to be included.
Yeah.
And I'm new to the modeling community out here, and they would think like, oh, she's new, like she's desperate. I'm not that desperate. Like I'm not that desperate, okay? I would never degrade myself just to be on top or be included in something, no matter how much it's paying, no matter how much exposure I'm getting. And then they'll get offended. It's like, you haven't, like you're not even as good as these other models. And but they start bashing.
Like, okay,
they start bashing
go talk
when
to
they get their
them.
feelings hurt. But like 5 minutes ago, I was just the prettiest girl you've ever hit up or whatever. So it's like the switch up is always so crazy. Just don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. It's never worth it. Ever.
Yeah. I also think, so there's like a huge kind of face of modeling on top of the sex trafficking industry that's like very prominent, and I don't think people realize like how quickly it's a very slippery slope. Like first you're taking your shirt off, next you're like shooting a porno, you know? And I think people are like, well, stop it when it gets to that point. No, like set your boundaries before. If you want to do a boudoir shoot, that's on you. That's totally, your call. First of all, though, especially if you're doing that, bring a friend. Bring 10 friends. If your photographer is like, oh, I don't think I want someone there. It'll mess up the dynamic. No, you're creepy, and you don't want other people to like see you being creepy, and you don't want, to feel like there's some sort of you're trying to. You have the power, and if someone else comes in, like maybe you don't. And also, I mean, I think photographers should also bring, their friends or assistants,
because you never know what could happen.
Yeah,
I've heard of so many stories of photographers getting jumped and like getting all of their equipment stolen.
That's the crazy thing.
And it's so scary.
There was someone I saw post about that like a few months ago, and I was like, that's so horrible. So like, as honestly, just if you're showing up anywhere like expecting to like be doing something, you just like, whether you're an actor, you're a photographer, or you're being hired for something, like you need to either bring someone with you or, make sure people know where you are.
Even if it's like a professional setting where you can't bring a +1 or whatnot, have them wait in the parking lot, share your location with them, let them know where you're at, how long you're going to be there, so that if anything does go wrong, they'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, if a photographer automatically is like, no, you can't bring someone. Like, if it's a set and, like, people can't be on the set or whatever, like, maybe there's an NDA or something like that. Okay, that's a different situation.
Understandable.
But, you, like you said, you could still have someone wait in the parking lot, And if there's that and other red flags, it's like, okay, maybe I should pass on this one. Make sure, like, you protect yourself in that way. Bring your pepper spray, bring your knife, bring 100%. Your pistol, whatever you have. Do you have certain ways that, besides like what we already talked about, that like you use to like protect yourself when you go to like meet with a photographer for the first time, or maybe not even for the first time?
Honestly, I really just keep it to having someone nearby. People knowing where I'm at all times. Definitely setting boundaries beforehand, because usually like if you don't set any boundaries and you get there and then try to set those boundaries, you never know, like what if you're put in a position where you can't say no, and it's scary. Like it has come down to that sometimes, and like if you're in a situation where you can't fend for yourself, that's so scary. So you always need to prepare beforehand, like you said, pepper spray, and set those boundaries beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's important because, you might get somewhere and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want to do this. I've even had models who wanted to like suddenly, take their shirt off. And I'm like, actually, let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
Let's not. I'm not going to do that. And so, in that situation, like I was the one like,
And I'm sorry you were put in those situations. That sucks.
It's just like awkward. I'm like, no, you should like,
and you want to keep the vibes
yeah,
good,
like you don't
and
want to
keep
make
the
it
shoot
awkward.
going. You want to like keep this relationship with them and not make it awkward. But if you setting boundaries does make it awkward and they're uncomfortable, then it just wasn't meant to be. You're not supposed to be working with that person.
I agree with that. And like I always tell photographers, like there's certain things you shouldn't do. Like you shouldn't, if your model's posing a certain way and like you want them to be like, don't just touch them. Like if you're gonna like fix a model's hair, if you're gonna like help them pose, like ask them. Don't just like be like doing stuff like that. Like you need to, first of all, like you need to protect yourself and not put yourself in a situation where things are like, you know, gonna be uncomfortable. Like you don't need to like be making yourself like just don't be creepy, you know, like just like it just really comes down to that. And
like when we were shooting, I made sure to tell you, like, I don't care, like you can fix my hair, position me however you want to, but if I or any model does not voice that to you and let you know that that's okay, do not be manhandling them, pulling them every which way. It's uncomfortable, it's scary. You never know what someone has gone through or is going through, and that could be a trigger. You never know.
Yeah. And like I don't understand why people like touch people in the vegan. I'm like, just like you don't need to just like be touching people like that you don't know. Like that's so weird.
So weird.
So you mentioned that like you do some runway stuff. How did like you get into that, and like have there been any experiences there that like have been kind of weird, or is it like mostly like one-on-one with photographers?
I've always been into print and runway, but the past couple of years, I wanted to lean more towards just runway, because just the whole like environment, like backstage, getting dressed, it's honestly pretty hectic a majority of the time, but I like it. It's a good kind of stress, and it's so fun. And I actually have been put in a situation where I was just very uncomfortable. This was my first runway show where I was like, I just felt like I was not respected whatsoever, and it was here in Houston. So beforehand, I let the designer know that I was fasting, and during my fasting season, I'm fully covered and modest. So I needed to be put in something that was not showing too much skin or anything like that. And I let the designer know beforehand, and he was okay with it. So I get to the fitting, and we're trying on different outfits and whatnot, and I had one dress. They had one dress for me that was actually modest, and I'm like, okay, cool, like this is fine. 10 minutes before we're supposed to go on, they gave my dress to a different model, and he told me I wasn't walking in the show.
Ew.
And
that's so rude.
Exactly.
That's
like
such
I was
a waste
like,
of your time,
why? I was there for I think 6 hours.
Oh my
6
hours.
Hair was done, makeup was done. I was ready. I was there for 6 hours, starving because I was fasting, like no food, no water, nothing. I was going through it, but I really wanted to be a part of the show, so it was a sacrifice I made. I'm there all day, and 10 minutes before I get on, I'm supposed to be on stage. He gave my dress to a different model who also needed to be in modest wear, and she was a white model. So I just felt so offended. I was like very upset, and he pulls me aside and he's like, "Don't worry, I have an upcoming show for swimwear." Okay.
Whoa.
First of all,
did you not hear what I just said?
Like, it's like I was not heard. He was not listening to anything I was saying. I was so
swimwear is crazy. I'm sorry, that's insane.
If I'm not even trying to wear a mini skirt right now, what makes you think I'm about to be, butt out?
Yeah, that's insane.
On the stage in swimwear.
Wow.
And so after that, I just never responded to anything he would ever send me. Never wanted to work with him again. It was so frustrating, and it happens. Like, there are so many cases in the industry where this has happened to so many other models, and this was my first one, and it was just really upsetting. And like sometimes, like, there's just nothing you can really do about it except tell others and inform others about what kind of designer that is.
So there is an article about that like recently came out, and I read it, and it was very interesting to me because it is these agencies that are seeing like what you're saying, and instead of like amplifying the people that they already have and people who are already interested. What they're doing is they're basically going to other countries and they're promising these women that they will be models. They'll, get this and that. And they're essentially like bringing them over to America, and they're basically like trafficking these people. They're promising them all this stuff, and they're like, oh, you'll be famous, you'll get this and this and this, and they bring them over here, and then once they're over here, then they don't necessarily like have what it takes. Then they're just like left off to their own, and they're either sent back to where they're from, or they're like left completely alone in
homeless, like they can't get jobs. Yeah. They're left to fend for themselves, and they use modeling as a front for all of it. And it sucks because there's so many girls all over the world who are interested in accomplishing their dreams, and you're so excited, like you're getting flew out and all these good things that you're promised, and then it's a scam.
Yeah. And I think it's an attempt at diversity, but it's going about it in like such a strange way and such a scary way for so many people who are like really trying to make their way out there. And it's just like so sickening to me. And I'm gonna read like part of this article because I can't like phrase it as well as they did. So it's basically, they said that modeling is like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, and that's exactly what the agencies take advantage of, promising great results while ignoring the risks and high probability of being back at square one with no money and no prospects. So these local scouts search for talent and send photos to European leaders thousands of miles away while they scour Instagram accounts of these refugees. And what happens to them is models who make it through the first round are given a work permit or permission from the government to leave the refugee camp, and they are taken and given a passport and a visa and booked on a flight to Europe. So they're kind of taken away from everything they know, and they're like taken to Europe with all these promises of money and riches and all this stuff. And they're given a little bit of money, 70 to 10 euros a week for food and expenses. The models stay in Europe for a few weeks, but if they don't get enough paid work or they are found unfit, they return to Kenya, and that is where that kind of, it's like, it's so interesting to me because it's like, how are you gonna like go to these people and like promise them like all of this stuff and end up completely, first of all, like you're moving them and you're moving them back, or some of these people are not even moved back and they have to like stay in America and they're just being like
you're
shipped around like an object
for no reason, building them up for no reason, but for your own advantage. And it's so sad because these girls, they probably aren't, they can't, like they're already in a place where they're not comfortable. It's a new place, it's a foreign place for them, and they may not be able to fend for themselves if anything goes down. And like
you're not giving them the tools to like advocate for themselves, which is like so important. And there's so many situations in which like people say like, oh, this is the, even if they are, promised all these things, it turns out to be something completely different, or it's modeling and then it turns out to be like sex work. So I saw a couple of articles, one that was actually from like a couple weeks ago, and basically it was talking about how this man who was a photographer like listed all of these opportunities in newspapers, and essentially what ended up happening is he was trafficking these women and inviting them to his house to model, or like he has a job, and then when they get there, like he essentially forced them into prostitution. And it's just like, it's kind of insane because like the way the police failed these people. So I'm gonna read from this article. So Ford, the man who did this, first came under investigation in February 2012 after police were called to a hotel near the airport. Officers found Ford and Prinster, who was one of his victims, in one room, and an 18-year-old recruited from Boise coming out of another room frightened and upset. Ford was arrested for attempting to compel prostitution, but the case was later dropped. And so you have these two women who are scared, frightened.
Yeah.
They obviously like have their stories, but
Mhm.
either they don't feel comfortable enough to share or they weren't believed in the right way. And so this man was let go. And then he ended up having to be arrested in Miami on federal indictment in 2014. Um, having all of these women just like that he's trafficking, and it's like
Mhm.
how can you fail like that, you know?
I think
It's
it happens so much, and there's definitely more cases that have not received the media coverage that they should have, and some cases like it just happens so much that they stop caring,
yeah.
and they're like, oh, it's inevitable, like whatever. And they just, it's not fair though, like it's not fair at
Yeah.
all. There are people who have done way less that are getting years or life in prison, and the charges getting dropped, and him not like getting the punishment
Yeah.
that he deserves is just so unfair and crazy. Like it's really unfair for everyone in that situation.
Yeah, I think when this guy was finally like totally caught, he had like 50 years and he was saying like, "Oh, like I regret all of this, you know, blah blah." I'm like, "Well,
You should.
like first of all, you were arrested before. Like
Mhm.
you had your chance to
Yeah.
like you were let go, like, and
Mhm.
then yet you kept, you know, bringing these women.
Yeah.
Like, for example, one of them was 15. You know,
Mhm.
you're bringing like
Oh
literal
my gosh.
children, and you're promising them this life that like
Mhm.
obviously it sounds awesome, and I think that's the way that like a lot of sex work is presented. Like, oh, like it's fun, it's awesome. You
Mhm.
know, you get on OnlyFans, you get $1,000,100.
Mhm.
The reality is like the top 10% of OnlyFans people like get around 2,000 a month.
Wow.
That's not even
Okay.
enough to pay your rent.
Yeah.
Like
Literally.
the only people I know that make any money off of OnlyFans are not doing it like as a full-time career,
Mhm.
and they're doing it because they're in a situation where they're a single mom or they're
Mhm.
someone who like ended up in a bad situation, and so they
Mhm.
just like have to make some extra money. But
Yeah.
it's like the glamour of modeling kind of is like the front for a lot of this stuff,
Mhm.
and it's just
Mhm.
like it's so sickening, honestly.
It is.
And it's just like I don't know, it's just insane to me. Like I don't think, you know, anyone can really comprehend the kind of things that are going down in
Mhm.
some of these situations in which, you know, they were originally promised
Mhm.
like all this glamour and glory.
And back to what we said earlier, mainly they like to prey on the ones who are so desperate to fulfill their goals. And there's nothing wrong with being like desperate, and you're just trying to fulfill all of your goals. Tick 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 tick. But it becomes an issue when you're willing to do whatever and you're getting taken advantage of, and that's how they prey on you. That's the issue. And these men, or there are women who do it too, they don't care. Like, as long as they are getting what they want out of your services.
Yeah. And I feel like it just really speaks to like how models are heavily objectified.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to kind of like in this, like what do you think are some ways that, you know, models and photographers can, and the industry in general, can work towards like viewing models in more respect and protecting models?
Um, One major thing that would help, that would improve the modeling industry, is accountability. A lot of photographers, designers, or big brands, whatever, they don't take accountability for all of their wrongdoings or how they treat their models. Um, Obviously, they're there to present your clothing or your designs, but they're not a doll.
Yeah.
They're a person with feelings, and you need to be able to respect those to have more clientele and build these amazing relationships. And without accountability, they're just gonna keep continuing what they're doing, and it's so wrong. And another thing is, some people look at modeling as like, if you're a model, you need to be able to do every little thing. But especially lately, I've been seeing a lot more Muslim models who are doing these shoots modestly. They're not they're setting their boundaries and telling these designers, I'm not going to be in front of this camera with my hair. I'm not going to be in front of this camera with something tight fitted or showing my skin or body. And I'm actually very proud of how the industry is slowly but surely evolving in that aspect, and not really just looking at models as, sex workers or just in a sexual way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it's great when, models are like, oh, well, I'm not comfortable with that. And, as a photographer, you always need to, like, respect that. And you don't need to be
Mhm.
pushy. You can find someone else who wants to do it. Like, there's people who don't want to do certain things, and that is totally fine.
Okay.
And yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
for joining us on the Unmuted Pod. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.